Hello, everyone, and welcome to the virtual presentations of the 2020 Hawai'i Island Community Food Summit. My name is Nicole Milne, and I'm the Vice President of Food and Agriculture Initiatives at the Kohala Center. I'm serving as a facilitator for this webinar on opportunities around value-added production, including regulations and educational opportunities available from the Hawaii Department of Health and the Hawaii Master Food Preservers Program. As all of you watching this webinar know, Hawaii provides us with an abundance of food year-round. Value-added producers across the state have taken advantage of this abundance by using food preservation techniques to prolong the shelf life of products and to make already ono ones taste even better. In this webinar, you will hear from Kyla Arruda, Food Safety Specialist with the Hawaii Department of Health Sanitation Branch, and Ken Love, Executive Director of the Hawaii Master Food Preservers Program. Kyla will speak about the regulations and opportunities around homemade food and the permitting process for special events. Well, Ken will discuss the Master Food Preservers Program in more detail. So sit back and enjoy the presentations, and don't forget to join us on November 6th to talk story more with today's presenters.
Hello everyone, my name is Kyla Arruda and I am the Food Safety Educator for the State of Hawaii Department of Health. Today I will be going over some basic information regarding homemade food operations and our special event permits. I will discuss the differences between the two and how to start the process of being able to sell your food items to the public. I have been with the State of Hawaii Health Department here on the Big Island for 15 years. I am currently the Food Safety Educator for the Food Safety Consultation and Education Program, which is under our Sanitation branch. I am responsible for providing education and information about safe food handling practices and techniques to help protect the public from foodborne illness. Before I was the educator, I was also a sanitation and food and drug inspector. I spent many years conducting routine and complaint inspections and providing consultative services at a variety of retail and wholesale food facilities across the Big Island. There are a wide variety of different types of food items that individuals wish to sell and provide to the public. The Health Department wants to make sure that the food items are made in a safe way so that the public can enjoy their food without having to worry about getting sick. There are many different permitting and non-permitting options. Today I will only be discussing two of them: homemade food operations, which does not require a permit from the Health Department, and our special event permit, which was previously known as our temporary food establishment permit. The definition of a homemade food product means not potentially hazardous food produced or packaged in a home kitchen, but does not include fermented foods, acidified foods, canned or bottled foods, dried meats or seafood, low-acid canned foods, and garlic and oil. Homemade food operations, as previously mentioned, are exempt from the requirement of a food permit. Non-potentially hazardous food items are considered to be low-risk foods because they do not have the ability to grow foodborne illness bacteria and are much less likely to make a person sick. In order to qualify for the homemade food operation exemption, there are several requirements that must be addressed. The kitchen is required to have a hand-washing sink with the appropriate cleaning compounds available at all times during food preparation activities and is used to maintain cleanliness. Hand soap and single-use paper towels should always be available. We do not recommend using reusable towels as they can have bacteria and viruses on them. Food products must also be sold directly to the consumer. You are not allowed to sell food items by internet, mail order, consignment, or wholesale. All food items shall have a label, and the label is required to have the following information. It needs to have a statement that reads, "Made in a home kitchen, not routinely inspected by the Department of Health." You should also have the common name of the food product, and if a common name does not exist, then you should have an adequately descriptive identity statement. If the food product is made from more than one ingredient, then you will need to have an ingredient statement, and the list of ingredients must be in descending order of predominance by weight. And last, you should also have the name and contact information of the homemade food product operator. Homemade food operators are also required to obtain food safety training through either the Department of Health or from a program that has been approved by the Department of Health. You can take classes through our food safety program. That would be either myself or Dennis Liu. I currently cover the Big Island, Kauai, Maui, Molokai, and Lanai, and Dennis covers Oahu. We offer both food handler and food manager courses. You can also get your food safety training through a private company, but they must be accredited by the American National Standards Institute. You can find more information and sign up for some of these classes through our Department of Health website. The URL is at the bottom of this slide. Some examples of the more common food items that would be allowed to be sold under the homemade food operation exemption could be things like breads, rolls, or mochi, cakes, cookies, and some types of pastries, cheesecake, custard pies, cream puffs and pies, and similar food items would not qualify because they are considered potentially hazardous. Candies and confections, jams, jellies, and preserves, cereals, trail mixes, and granola, and popcorn. Just be aware that this list does not include all approved homemade food products. For food items that are not listed here, please check with the inspector to find out if it would qualify for the exemption. Although you are not required to have a permit with the health department for homemade food operations, I do want to remind you that the health department does have the ability to conduct an inspection and investigation if we should ever receive a consumer complaint or if it appears that a foodborne illness outbreak may have occurred from a food item being processed by your business. For food items that may not be produced under a homemade food operation exemption, another option is to sell it using a special event permit. The definition of a special event is a planned activity where food is distributed to the public with or without charge at a single specified location held indoors or outdoors, on public or privately owned property, and may include a sporting event, carnival, fairs, farmers markets, public exhibition, festival, religious organization function, parade, or other similar gathering. This permit is not the same as a regular annual permit because it limits the business to a single location per permit and for a limited amount of time. To clarify, the special event permit is site-specific. If you plan to sell your food items at more than one location during the same time period, you would need to apply for a permit for each location. Let's use farmers markets as an example. If you plan to be at one farmer's market on Wednesday and another farmer's market on Sunday, you would need to apply for 2 permits because the markets are not at the same location. The application must be submitted to our office at least 10 days before the first day of your event. The inspectors need time to review the application. Sometimes they may have questions they need to talk to you about, or there may be additional paperwork or information that they need. If you turn your application in late, they may not have time to finish the review process, and your application may not be approved. In the past, the health department did not require a permit for non-potentially hazardous food items that were being sold at special events. However, that has changed, and we are now requiring a permit for both non-potentially hazardous food items and potentially hazardous food items. Potentially hazardous food items are foods that have the ability to make someone sick if they are not stored and handled properly. The application is limited to only 31 days per permit. Once the 31 days are used, you would need to apply for another permit and pay the permit fee. Food items are also no longer allowed to be made at home. In the past, we did allow non-potentially hazardous foods to be made in a home kitchen under a special event permit. However, this is no longer allowed. All food items need to be made in a support kitchen, which is also known as a certified kitchen. The inspector may require additional paperwork, like a menu or flowchart, depending on the food item that you plan to prepare. More complicated food items have a greater risk of making someone sick, so the inspector may need additional information to determine if the process is safe. On the day of the event, an inspector may stop by and conduct an inspection. If violations are cited, they must be corrected immediately, or the booth could be shut down. Overhead protection is required for all food storage, assembly, cooking, and serving areas. Examples could be a pop-up tent, under the eave of a building, or perhaps some other type of fireproof setup if you plan to cook on site. A hand washing station must be conveniently located. Make sure that it is placed in an area of the booth that will not cross-contaminate your food and food contact surfaces. If you only plan to sell food items that are pre-packaged, then a hand washing station is not required. Please also remember that hand sanitizers, gloves, and wet wipes should not be used as substitutes for washing your hands. You can use those other items during your operation, but hand washing must always be conducted. No bare hand contact is allowed with ready-to-eat food items. You have a variety of options like gloves, single-use deli paper, spatulas, tongs, and other utensils. Prepping of ingredients and other food items shall be conducted at your support kitchen. You are allowed to assemble and conduct a limited amount of cutting on site. However, additional requirements would need to be addressed and approved by the inspector. Cooling and thawing of food items are very complicated procedures, which would need to be done in the support kitchen. You cannot cool or thaw your food items on site at the event. And it is also highly recommended that you have extra utensils and equipment with you at the event. You are not allowed to wash your dishes on site. Please make sure that your approved permit is always available on site. If an inspector should stop by, they should be able to review it at any time. And also make sure that once your application has been approved, you do not change your operation. If an inspector stops by and you are operating differently than what was indicated on your application, it could result in the immediate closure of your food booth. If changes do need to be made once your application has been approved, please contact your inspector.
Here's a sample of a special event permit application. I filled out part of it and we'll go through it together so that you have an idea of how you would need to fill out the form. So if we go to the top of the form, you can see here that this top box right here, this top section, has basic information, contact information, and also information about the event. So you have name of event, location. If the event has a coordinator, you could put their name here, and of course their contact information, what the name of your food booth would be, who the contact person is, their contact numbers and email. And then in this box I, right here, we want you to put in who has their food safety handler certification card. So whoever that person may be, you would put their name here. If you have more than one person, you could put 2, 3, 4 names. And they may also ask for a copy of their certification. So when you turn in your application, just make sure you have that with you, because they'll probably make a copy and attach it to the application. Okay, so now if we go down, so this section right here are where you're going to put in the dates for your events. So there's 31 total spaces, so 31 total dates that you could put for this one permit. And so depending on the amount of days that you plan to do the event will determine what your fee will be. So if you're going to do 1 to 5 days, it would be about $50. 6 to 10 days is $75. 11 to 20 days is $100, and then each day after 20 days is $5 per day. So if you were to do all 31 days, your permit would come out to $150. And now if we move on down, so depending on what type of food items you're doing, so here is where you would list the foods that you're planning to serve. There's only 6 spaces, but if you're going to do more than 6, that's fine. You would just attach an additional paper with your menu. And then depending on which foods you're going to be serving, you would need to have a support kitchen. So we want to make sure that whatever support kitchen you're using, that they are actually allowing you to use the kitchen. So this is where you would put all of their information, and then the owner or agent of authority of the kitchen, so like maybe the manager, kitchen manager, would need to sign and print their names. So that's something you might need additional time for, because you will need to have that done before you turn in your application to us. Then at the bottom, you're just going to sign, print your name, put the date. Your inspector will receive your forms and all your paperwork, and then once it's approved, then they will go ahead and sign. And then this part down here is just for the health department, so you don't have to worry about that. This is the second page of the special event permit application. So here at the top we can see, so now we're looking at site facilities, and we're just looking at different things. So you have food protection, so we just want to know overhead coverage. How are you going to do that? So is it a pop-up tent? Like I was mentioning, is it going to be underneath an existing inn or underneath an existing building, maybe the eave, or if there's some other kind of coverage that you're going to have. We want to make sure that the food is going to be protected from the public. So do you have sneeze guards? Are you only doing prepackaged foods, so everything's all wrapped up and ready to go? Will your equipment have covers if you're going to be plating food items? Are the foods being handled at least 5 feet away from the public, or some other type of protection? And then on site, what type of food handling are you going to be doing? And so just remember, food prep must be completed at your support kitchen. But are you going to be doing cooking, assembling, which is, putting the food together, plating, or any other type of food handling? Then up here, we want to know if you're required to have a hand wash sink, because, depending on the types of foods you're doing, if it's all prepackaged, you won't need a hand wash sink. But if you do, what type is it? So is it a gravity fed, meaning the water is up above and it's just going to be free flowing? Is it a self-contained portable sink? Is it a permanently plumbed sink, or not applicable, which would be prepackaged? Equipment being used for food handling: grills, fryers, utensils, cutting boards, woks, or any other equipment. And then temperature control. So temperature is very important. If you're going to be holding foods hot on site, it has to be held at 135 degrees Fahrenheit or above. Cold foods must be held at 41 degrees Fahrenheit and below. So we want to make sure, because anything in between can grow those germs, so especially the bacteria. So how are you going to keep it hot or cold? Coolers, refrigerators, warming dishes, Cambros. Using time for control is when you leave your potentially hazardous foods out at room temperature, and so you're going to control it by time. You have no more than 4 hours, and then the food has to be either eaten or thrown away. So that would be maybe like bento, spam musubis, prepackaged stuff that's just going to be sitting out at room temperature. And then here at the bottom, which is the last part of your application, we just want to know basically how your booth is going to be set up, and where your hand wash sinks are going to go, any equipment that you might have. And the reason why we want to see this is because if for some reason something is in a place that could potentially cross-contaminate your food or your food contact surfaces, or if we feel like maybe you're missing something, then we can give you recommendations as to where it should go. So I just made a little drawing here. It doesn't have to be fancy. So this might be where your customers are going to come up to your booth. You have, this is where you're going to have your little register. Maybe your food items are here, so I just put in some little warming units. Over on this side, you have your hand wash station. paper towel, hand soap, bucket at the bottom to catch the wastewater, and then maybe you have your coolers in the back. So this is just one example, but it could be any way that you're going to set up your booth. Like I said, we just want to see where things are going to be so we can make sure that it's safe.
If you have any additional questions in the future, please don't hesitate to contact me by phone or email. You can also find additional resources on our Food Safety branch page, which is located on our Department of Health website. You can also get forms and handouts, as well as talk to any of our inspectors at our Hilo and Kona offices. Our office is open Monday through Friday, 7:45 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., except on state holidays. If you wish to speak to one of the inspectors in person, it is highly recommended that you call first and make an appointment. Thank you again for watching this presentation. By working together, we can keep your food safe and your customers happy.
Welcome to the Hawaii Master Food Preservers. HMFP grew out of the need to assist small family farms with sustainability in their operations. Initially undertaken by Hawaii tropical fruit growers as a way to assist our growers with markets, they have seconds and more unusual types of tropical fruit not commonly purchased by chefs or wholesalers. This was a positive alternative to what would otherwise be wasted. Each of the 8 full days of classes begins with a reading circle and discussion in the morning, especially of the previous days. Yeah, you guessed it, homework. The afternoon is in the kitchen where students prepare a wide variety of safe value-added products. The only prerequisite is to have a food safety certification card from either the State Department of Health or ServSafe or from hifoodhandlers.com, which is the quickest, easiest, and cheapest way to achieve food safety certification. Day 1 starts with the food safety practices and regulations and knife skills. The only rule is you go home with all the fingers you came with. Day 2 is jam day, where local fruit is utilized to prepare either jelly, jam, conserves, preserves, or syrups. On day 3, we start the afternoon session with a marinara sauce, followed by either a chutney or salsa, depending on student choices. And then the next day is high pressure canning, and that's a long one. Requires a significant amount of time as we can both vegetables and meats or fish, green beans and chicken for the lesson plan, and the vegetable and protein that the student chooses can eat up a lot of time. Usually the class can run into the early evening, but well worth the time to learn how to process your own can of tuna. Then comes pickling and fermentation. Each student will make sauerkraut and pickle either cucumbers, beets, beans, or other fruit and vegetables of choice depending on the season. There's an art to freezing correctly, and more so to the opportunities we have in Hawaii for dehydration. The science behind these forms of preservation is looked at closely. Day 7 is the oral exam. All students prepare a class project during this time where we grade each other. Students will have about 20 minutes to take us through the project they've chosen. Generally, these are done at home on their own time with enough preparation to share with each of the other students. It's much easier than it sounds. Preparing and sharing is not mandatory, but the oral exam is to achieve certification as a master food preserver. Given time, this is also the day for class discussions on marketing and labeling, as well as time for a visit from a guest chef and or local food producer. Our final exam sounds scary. 61 questions with 116 answers. Okay, the good news, it's all open book. And some of our students have aced it with 100%. It's all about what we've worked on the previous 7 weeks. Most students start at 9 and finish close to noon. Then it's graduation time, award presentation, and a potluck lunch where we can invite family and friends. HFMP also often relies on funding. The more detailed graduate classes are offered when instructors and/or funding are available. HMF, boy, I keep tripping over my own tongue. HMFP and HTFG have a symbiotic relationship. Growers' fresh fruit helps to market value-added products made from it, and those products continue to help growers find new markets. It reduces waste and helps to promote much of what Hawaii has to offer. HMFP has graduated almost 200 from the program over 10 years from all islands. Some of the more popular items around the state that you find in the stores have come from our students. Some products created have gone on to national food chains. The networking, the workforce development that many of us enjoy grew from this program with our partners on each island. Thank you for watching. We look forward to having you as part of the Hawaii Master Food Preservers and Hawaii Tropical Fruit Growers family. Please let us know if
you have any questions. Mahalo.